Welcome back to another video. Today I'd like to be going over how the Sunbelt has become very blue recently, including the states of California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. Some of these states have already went blue in the past or in 2020, and some of them are yet to become blue. And also, we're going to be going over why the Rust Belt has been shifting to the Republican Party for a long time now. And we're going to be going over electoral votes, losses, and gains throughout the country. And just going over why the Sun Belt has become a lot bluer and the Rust Belt a lot redder. If you guys haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, leave a like down below. Click that notification bell. And if we do get enough views, likes, comments, and subscribers, I could start a new channel on whatever topic you guys would like me to talk about. So click that notification bell to get notified whenever I post a YouTube video, which will be multiple times daily. So let's start off with margin of victory. If you guys haven't seen my Ron DeSantis versus Joe Biden election prediction, then check that out right now. I posted it not long ago. So just check that out. If you guys want to take a look at margins of victory, go to jacksonjews.com. It's a common site usually used to find margin of victory, and just create your own custom map. So I really keep in mind this video is not sponsored, but I really like their their base. So let's start off. You look at the Sunbelt, California, it hasn't been like this for a long time, only in the past 20 years or so, things have been changing in a lot of these states. It hasn't been too long, since, a lot of these states have changed by margin-wise, or even flipping to a different political party. So, if you look back at 2000, California was a 11% margin state. 11.8. Gore carried the state by 11.8. In 2004, Kerry carried the state by even less, 9.9. And then Obama came, and it went from a 9.9 margin of victory to Obama's margin of victory of 24.1. In 2012, it didn't change. It was 23.1. In 2016, it also didn't change. It was 30.1. Actually, it shifted blue. And in 2020, it was 30.1 back in 2016. Let's check this out. In 2020, 29.2. So 1 point to the right. Less than 1 point to the right. But that's still, California has shifted very far to the left recently. Another state I want to go over, more recent states. When Colorado, Virginia, New Mexico, these states, you got to really go back to 2004. 2004, Colorado was a state decided for Bush by 8.4%. New Mexico was actually decided for Gore by 0.061%. A very small amount. He carried it by 0.6%. A lot smaller than, Georgia. One-fifth of how Arizona shifted in 2020. Virginia at the time went to the Republican Party. Bush 8 points. 2004, New Mexico came back to the Republican Party. It was not a hold. It was 0.79%. Colorado 4.7%, and Virginia 8.2%. And all of a sudden, when Obama came, everything flipped on the spot. New Mexico became from a tilt red state to a safe state. 16% to the Republican Party. For the Democratic Party, 15.1% Obama carried the state. For Colorado, 9% Obama carried the state. And Virginia, 6.3% Obama carried the state. In 2012, more red shift. New Mexico dropped down a lot from that 15% safe margin. It was 10%. Colorado was 5.4% from that 9% margin. And Virginia got down to 3.9%. But then all of a sudden, in 2016, it was sort of back to normal. Colorado, 4.9%, a 5% margin of victory for Hillary Clinton. New Mexico was an 8.2% margin of victory for Hillary Clinton. And Virginia was a 5.3%. So at the time, those were states those were margins of victory. Besides New Mexico, those were swing states. 2020 rolls around. New Mexico, 10.8%. Colorado, 13.5%. Virginia, 10.1%. The first Democrat to win Virginia by double digits in a very long time. He flipped Colorado by 13.5%, double digits for the Democratic Party in a very long time. And these states have shifted overwhelmingly to the Democratic Party. Next one, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona. These three states, just like Virginia, New Mexico, and Colorado, they have a few differences because Arizona and Georgia actually went to Joe Biden. Let's start off. You got to really go back to history. 2000, Arizona was, 6.3%. Georgia, 11.7%. George Bush carried the state of Georgia by 11.7%. North Carolina was decided by 12.8%. And it was about the same thing. But in 2004, Georgia was even a redder state. Georgia was a safe state. 16.6% for George H.W. Bush. Georgia never really got down a lot to the Democratic Party. 2008, North Carolina went to the Democratic Party. North Carolina went to the Democratic Party. It was a small shift, but North Carolina went by 0.33%, about the same thing as Arizona went today. And Georgia at the time shrunk down. At first it was a 16% margin. The next year was a 5% margin. 11% to the left. Arizona, 8.5%. About the same thing. John McCain, he's a senator from that state. So, didn't make much of a difference. North Carolina and Georgia now came down from a 16%. It was 5%. And then in 2012, it wasn't much different. 7.8%. Obviously, 2012 was a more red wave year. And then North Carolina was still back sort of 2%. It was a 2% for Romney. And then Trump came back. He really pushed up the standards. Arizona went down 3.5%. Georgia was still a 5% state. It went down from Romney carrying it by 7%. And North Carolina had gone up to 3.7%, shifted 1.7% to the right. And then 2020 is where things happened. Georgia went 5 points to the left. Arizona, 4 points to the left. Arizona went to Joe Biden at the time by 0.3%, Georgia 0.2%, and North Carolina was a Trump state, but it only went by, let me double check on the margin of victory here, 1.3%. And at first in 2016, carried by 3.7%. That's a 2.4% difference, the same margin as Nevada. So, these states have shifted predominantly to the Democratic Party. The next two states, Florida and Texas. So Florida is always a swing state. Florida will most likely be for the next decade a swing state. Florida was a Democratic state when Obama came. It shrunk down in 2012. And now, Trump expanded his margin by about 2% between 2016 and now for 2020. Texas is the real state that we're focusing on. Texas is, at one point it will be the biggest state. Electoral-wise, it's going less faster than California. At one point, Texas had 26 electoral votes. New York had 41. Now Texas has 38. New York has 29. Texas is going to have 41 electoral votes in 2024. So, Texas is gaining a lot of electoral votes. 3, 4 electoral votes, 2, 3, 4 electoral votes every census, every 4 years. So, it's changed. And Texas, is going to be a more Democratic state from now on. So in 2000, let's go back to about 2004. Bush was from the state, but he carried it by a huge margin, 20 percentage points. If you look here, Bush carried the same thing in 2000 and 2004. He carried the state of Texas by 22.9 percentage points, 23 percentage points. In 2008, it went from 22 percentage points with John McCain on the ballot against, his opponent, Barack Obama. He carried it by only 11.8 percentage points. 2012, it was a significant shift to the right just because, McCain didn't do as well as Hispanics. And, we see that Texas has a lot of Hispanics, not only 30% of the state speak Spanish. The minority voters, Romney did much better with Hispanics and minority voters than McCain, so he pushed that margin up 3-4%, and he carried Texas by 15.8%. Donald Trump came in, even though he did decently well with Hispanics and minority voters, he didn't improve much. Actually, he went down a lot. He went down to 9%, and then in 2020, Texas was a state that went to Donald Trump by under 6%, 5.6%. So, these states, all the states that we've run over, Mississippi, South Carolina, if you look at the shift, these are not really big states, but you look back in, 2020, Mississippi, it's going to be a likely state for why? Well, because Mississippi, you really got to look at the margins. It was only 16.5%, 1.5% less, it's a likely state. It was a likely state during Obama. Mississippi had a Democratic past. Usually it doesn't reach, that much. South Carolina, it shifted a lot. It was a safe state for the Republican Party. Bush time, Obama came, he brought it down to a likely margin. Trump, he carried it by a leans margin in 2016. It's been a leans margin. That margin is expected to shrink in South Carolina. Let's move on to the Rust Belt. States that are losing, electoral votes. I'm basically, when I say Rust Belt, I'm going over Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I don't really go over Illinois, New York, Minnesota, because, these are Rust Belt states, but they don't have a shift either way, and they don't really benefit the Republican Party. They're not really shifting any direction. So let's go over Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So, back then, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were not swing states. The swing states, we really focus on Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia. These are solid states. These are not swing states anymore. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania were not swing states at the time. In 2000, Wisconsin was a small margin. Michigan was a likely margin. Michigan went to Al Gore by a decent margin where you're going to say that's not a swing state. Well, today it is 5.1%. That is a likely margin. That is not a swing state. That 5.1% is not it is a competitive state, but it's not, to say how it was. Obama came and he made Michigan safe. He made Michigan safe for the Democratic Party. Safe. I repeat, safe. 16.5%. Pennsylvania, 10%. Wisconsin, 7%. Michigan is more liberal. Pennsylvania is sort of in the middle. And Wisconsin is, the least of those three states. 2012 rolls around. Michigan drops down. All the states are likely margin. Pennsylvania, 8%, 5% in Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, a bit less. And, Michigan is still sitting at a 10% margin for Obama in 2012. But that margin shrunk. 2016, all of them flipped for the Republican Party. 10% to the left and 10% to the right. And even though in 2020, Wisconsin 0.6%, Michigan 2.8%, Pennsylvania 1.2%. You round that up, Wisconsin, half a percentage point, Michigan 3%, Pennsylvania 1%. That is still a Democratic shift, but only 3% in Michigan compared to a 17%. Barack Obama victory is a lot less than expected. So anyways, guys, that wraps up the video. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And we'll see you guys next video. Peace out.